These are 15 shocking true crime stories ever told on the Joe Rogan Podcast. Episode number 1523, Joey Diaz and Brian Redban recount the wild rise of Carlos Lader, the Nazi-obsessed Colombian narco who ruled his own island.
That Narcos is an interesting. They did him right. I think this year they're going to Miami.
They killed it with Pablo. They killed it.
Killed it.
That guy's so good.
Killed it. And the guy I like that they hired was that dude that got like 2,000 years in jail. The one who ran the island. Like, his story is hilarious because he was a John Lennon fanatic.
Yeah.
And he was half German, so he was a Hitler, but he was Spanish. Okay, and he was.
Sounds like a Saturday Night Live sketch.
So when the feds went all extradite on these guys, they became the extraditables. This guy took to the radio, and they show scenes of him on the radio, fucking hot, like, okay, so you cannot take us back to the United States because you're the number one exporter of our product. And he's snoring. All of a sudden he sees like an assistant walk by and he goes, hey, come here. And all of a sudden she just kneels down. She's blowing him on camera. And he's like, listen to me. You have to. He became nuts.
When was this?
Listen to what they did, okay?
Hold on. Is there a video of this you can get?
Oh, my God. Carlos Lader is a fucking lunatic. Carlos Lader was the one who went to Pablo and said, I'm gonna fly the coke back for you, but we're gonna make a stop on an island. So they bought an island. They fucking threw the doctor off. There was a white doctor that like, oh, nice to meet you. And they were like, listen, there's a whole story about it that's hysterical. The guy called the feds. There's something going on over there. They're doing pornographic. They're running in planes of blow.
Wow.
And there's this one, they bought everybody out, but there was this one white dude who was like, this is my island. I'm an American. I fought in World War II. I'm not leaving. And they're like, dog, we're going to fucking kill you. Okay? We're going to keep. And all night they were bringing in planes, refueling them, and sending them out. Carlos laid there.
What does it say? U.S. drug lord and Escobar partner Lader released in Germany from prison. When was this?
Oh, my God. He's
just now.
From Florida to Germany.
Oh, from Florida to Germany.
Because he's originally from Germany. His father was German. He's got 2,000 years. So what they did was this. It doesn't take a fucking genius. This kid got the island. He made them a bunch of money. But then he started doing a podcast from the island with cameras and naked women.
What?
Of him snorting coke with a robe on.
How old was he?
Who the fuck knows? 28, 30, just making $20 million a day. Think if you're making $20 million a day and you're just addicted to coke, there's bags of blow behind you. He's just ripping bags open, snorting them, just talking. He was a John Lennon fan. So he would talk about There he is. He would do these videos for hours. For days.
So he was like an original YouTube star.
Yeah, so what they did was, but he wasn't posting on YouTube.
He was like, he would be huge.
They did was,
he's MySpace boy.
He's the first one they gave up. When the shit got deep and the Colombians were in trouble, the 5 Colombians sat down. They said, listen, this kid's on an island talking about Jim Morrison and the Doors. Let's let the feds know where he's at. We'll give him you, and we got no beef. So they extradited Lader. They gave him 2,000 years.
Oh my God!
Look up the sentence. I'm not trying to be funny. They gave him 1,000 years.
So why would they extradite him to Germany?
Because he gave them information years later about. He gave them like vital. He gave them really great information that if the country fucking knew, we would sink. Like he gave them shit.
Like what?
He gave them information that he also, not beside having his island, that was also a distraction. His main contributor, his main supplier was Fidel. So Fidel was letting him go to Cuba bring the coke to Cuba, stock it, and for every ship that went out from Cuba to the United States with a Cuban flag, Fidel would get a kickback of $800,000. Fidel was sending 3-4 ships a day. So he testified against Fidel, which obviously nobody ever arrested Fidel. And he told them everything he knew about the ins and outs of money moving. You could find it online, all the shit he had done.
This guy in Blow is based off of him.
And that guy in Blow is based on him.
He's a cellmate, George Young's cellmate in prison.
Isn't it funny? Like, no one wants their son to do that, but everybody loves these movies.
Episode 1302. Ed Calderon explains El Chapo's power, corruption, and cartel influence across Mexico.
The gold gun's a big giveaway.
Oh, gold guns are, that's how you know.
Yeah, there's some amazing websites that document all the different stuff that the cartel has, but they love gold guns.
Yeah, that's El Chapo got like a very special gold gun when he was named one of the top earners in the Forbes list. I think he got his number on the gun and everything. The second to last time he got caught, because he got caught a lot of times and escaped. Somebody in the military that got him took it, and it ended up in the museum. I think it's in a museum somewhere in Mexico City, where a lot of these gold guns. That's a war trophy for those guys, right?
So there's like a gold gun section of the museum.
Yes, there is. Mexico City.
Wow.
Yeah, that's pretty wild. Gold gun, gold AK-47s,
Now, if everything is so corrupt down there, how does a guy like El Chapo keep getting popped? I mean, because when I saw his escape,
yeah,
I was like, this is hilarious. The fact that this guy goes to the toilet and then he opens a door and whoop, he's in a tunnel and on an electric scooter and goes a mile, pops up on the other side. And they had everything set up for him with electricity. I think the thing that people kind of don't understand about the corruption is it's not just corruption because people are greedy. It's also fear-based corruption. So if you don't do what I say, we're going to kill everybody in your family, even your dog. That type of thing, right? So after El Chapo escaped that last time, all of the staff at the jail got, put in prison. And really? So they were all part of it.
There's rumors that they were,
Seems like somebody had to hear all that digging.
Of course,
I mean, it's only a mile away. They dug the tunnel.
It was pretty deep.
Yeah.
Some things that should have been patrolled weren't patrolled. It was a pretty good, well-made tunnel for what it was.
Really well made.
So a lot of the people that El Chapo actually used for these tunnel operations, because the same people that he used for the tunnels in the border region, all the active tunnels that are somewhere, along the border, all of those guys were pulled in from silver mining companies that used to operate all over Mexico. That kind of went into the toilet, so they were looking for jobs and.
Wow, get El Chapo out. It's a good job.
That's or drug tunnels,
When you saw all that shit go down with Sean Penn and Sean Penn visiting El Chapo and Sean Penn writing an article for Rolling Stone, were you like, what in the fuck is going on here?
Yes. For some reasons that might not be, mainly was why are they giving him this celebrity status?
Yeah.
There's a lot of glorification and a lot of, people venerating some of these people down there, and they do a lot of harm, so that he's basically giving a voice to somebody. It would be the equivalent of somebody up here giving a voice to somebody that was, responsible for a lot of damage done to the U.S., it's.
Why do you think they did that? Like, what was the romance? It was romantic, right? There was something about it. It's like, here's Sean Penn, one of our biggest movie stars.
Yeah.
With one of the biggest drug dealers ever.
I mean, he is El Chapo down, because I've been to Sinaloa, and I've actually done classes there, which was pretty surreal. He's a folk hero. He's a Robin Hood, basically, to these people. And when the surreal moment that I had down there, I was driving along this bad, bumpy ride highway, and all of a sudden it turned into a nice kind of highway. And the guys that I was with told me, "Oh yeah, the cartel made this highway." And the back part of it, that's the government part of the highway. This is the good one. You know, schools, careers, lawyers, doctors, all their careers paid for.
By the cartel.
Immigration processes of people that want to come over here, sponsorships and all that type of stuff on both sides, right? So the span of influence, that's how he kind of got to where he was. You know, he was always helping people, and he was investing in people, and these investments would pay later on. You know,
in a lot of ways, it sounds like he benefited them. He benefited some aspects of the community.
Yeah, I mean, the reason why the military couldn't get him, people could say corruption, but because he had a human shield around him. You know, all these towns owed, you know, schools, hospitals. Instead of Christmas down there, they celebrate the Day of the Kings. You know, so he would get presents. Mother's Day, they would all get presents, that type of thing. So why would we want to help the military come in here and get El Chapo if he's doing this type of stuff? You know, that is the same all over Mexico with some of the cartels. You know, they hearts and minds type approach is what makes some of these groups, you know, long lived.
So how much of an effort is there to eradicate the cartels? Because if you can get a guy like El Chapo, who at least in terms of like popularity is at the top, is he at the top of the list?
As far as popularity?
But he's at the top of the list as far as popularity. But as far as like the actual drug dealers, is he at the top of the list, or are there more clever folks that hide underground?
Yeah, there's rumors of people above him that are still out there somewhere.
Yeah, that's what everybody that's the great conspiracy. Is that like El Chapo is basically the bank manager?
Well, you know, he has a compadre. You know, a compadre is somebody that if you're the godfather of my kid, you're my compadre, right? So he has a compadre out there, El Mayo Zambada, and he is still out there, right? And the extent of how he works and where he works is unknown.
So he's more slick.
Exactly.
He tries to stay more low key.
Well, there's some people get sick with the fame probably, and they want to go outside. And,
once that TV show Narcos came on,
yeah.
Then people, I think there's a lot of people who did not realize how crazy the life of Pablo Escobar was.
Yeah.
And what really went down in Colombia.
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy.
Pablo Escobar was he was a phenomenon in his time and age, but he was one man. Now imagine replicating that type of insanity over the span of Mexico, and it's about 8 or 9 guys, you know? That was the 90s, early 2000s, because these guys were, you know, Legion of Doom type thing where they would be enemies, but they would have reunions and they would meet up and kind of agree on, you know, certain
terms
things
and stuff.
Yeah.
Just like in the Pablo Escobar show.
Yeah.
So they really do that. They get together and have meetings, and sometimes they kill each other.
That's a reality. You know, they do at times, or did at times, because things are currently after El Chapo. You know, things kind of shifted and changed.
What happened?
Well, main thing is a power vacuum, and with the power vacuum and legalization on this side of certain substances like marijuana, the pot fields are now poppy fields, and new things like them now dedicating themselves to heroin instead of the weed, but mysteriously there's still weed fields down there for some reason. You know, you guys are way better at making it than anybody down there, but for some reason there's still some weed fields.
Well, I think it's a lot of it is access, especially in the states where it's prohibited.
Yeah.
It's just they're probably more willing to get it to the people.
That's probably it. Meth precursors being brought in from China to Mexico, or now being made in Mexico, like industrial level stuff.
Right.
And a new upsurging cartel down there that is trying to overtake the Sinaloa cartel. The new generation cartel is coming out of Guadalajara, and they're kind of really militarized kind of wing of cartel activities that are trying to, you know, take control over the whole thing.
Episode number 1614 with Tiller Russell discusses women's fascination with murderers and the psychology behind it.
Do you ever do a demographic breakdown of who watched Like, does Netflix have a demographic breakdown of who watches those crime shows? Because it's mostly women, isn't it?
Anecdotally, that's what everybody says. There was a funny bit on Saturday Night Live the other night that was like, what do ladies do when they're home alone? Wait, then they like throw on the murder shows.
Yeah, why is that?
I don't know. It's a weird thing. And when we were making Night Stalker, we would get to the point in the interview where it's finally, I would ask everybody, like, okay, so for some reason or another, this guy becomes like the Jim Morrison of serial killers, because like when he's paraded through the courtroom, all of a sudden he's got these like groupies and fans, and they're sending him, and I had gotten access to all of the like naked pictures that the girls are sending in, because this author had written a book about him, had all this stuff. And I was like, and you always have to kind of ask that awkward question of like, so why does this guy become this sort of crazy sex symbol object of desire, obscure object of desire? And it's always like kind of particularly with the women who are being interviewed, but everybody, and nobody quite has an answer. Is it the bad boy thing? Is it the celebrity thing? But this is somebody that like, I think as one of the people said, this is somebody that would eat you for dinner, not like, there's no, it's craziness to have any attraction to it, but yet it exists. This guy has like groupies and fans.
And it's very common for murderers to get,
Hugely
especially
common.
murderers of women, to get all these propositions from women.
Yeah.
It's very strange.
Super strange.
And, I read something about that. No, Whitney Cummings was actually telling me about this. She said she read that it was something that had to do with, there was like an evolutionary benefit to getting close to killers. Like that, I think this is theoretical.
In what regard?
That the idea of it's very hard to kill someone.
Once you have like human personal contact? Is that what you're saying?
No. No, that the act of killing someone, that it's difficult to do, and that it requires like someone who is to be capable of taking another person's life. And to be close to that person means somehow or another you're protected by them, and that they're willing to kill, and that this is like something that existed thousands and thousands of years ago in our DNA, this desire to be close to killers because you were more likely to survive because there were so many killers. Like if you went back in time, a few thousand years ago, murder must have been like really common. Like when people were sword fighting all the time and
there's a
stabbing
crazy book on this. Steven
Yeah?
Pinker wrote this book called The Better Angels of Our Nature. And what he does is he tracks over time kind of the nature of violence in humanity.
Yes.
And he's like, okay, once upon a time there's Cain and Abel, and Cain kills Abel, like the murder rate is like 50%. So actually we've been trending up ever since then. And like it literally looks at how, over time, the incidence of like violence has actually, even though it doesn't seem like that, dramatically decreased in humanity.
It does seem like that. I think we just focus on the instances of violence because we have mass media.
Right.
And because
it's fascinating.
Yeah. And if it bleeds, it leads. So there's
But why is that? Like that's something that, making The Night Stalker or even making Silk Road, it's like, why are we fascinated by the underworld? The sort of like the worst things that people do to each other. Like, what is it? And you're participating in it. I'm participating in it. Anytime we're watching it, making it, or whatever, we are all in some way complicit in that.
In episode number 1414, Mike Baker examines Epstein's suspicious death and global intelligence implications.
Well, how about the other
So
prince?
you got to go to again.
How about the other prince, the one that's Epstein's friend?
Oh, Andrew.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was.
What?
Yeah.
First of all, how odd is that
Yeah.
guy when they're interviewing him and talking to him?
Yeah.
It's like, what?
The Queen kicked him to the curb very quickly.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
it's very strange.
Yeah.
What is your take on this whole Epstein thing? First of all, can we just agree? Look at that. So
Yeah.
you sure she's 18?
So you're telling me that yeah.
She does not look 18. She looks 16. Are you sure? You sure?
Man, what a shit show that is.
Yeah, what a shit show. So let me ask you this right off the bat.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know what I'm going to ask you. He didn't kill himself, right?
I don't believe so.
Thank you.
No.
There's
You know,
the
and you know
one
me,
peop-
I'm not a conspiracy guy, right?
Right.
I don't disappear down rabbit holes very often, but no, I don't think there's any way in hell he killed himself.
Michael Shermer, who's the head of Skeptics magazine, who doesn't believe anything, found out that the tapes were missing and that the cameras didn't work and that the tapes were accidentally deleted from the first time he attempted suicide. And Shermer's like, oh, this is a conspiracy. Like, it was enough evidence that one of the biggest a professional skeptic. Professional, he doesn't believe anything.
No. There's no way I could be convinced that he offed himself.
No way.
So,
he knew too much.
Yeah. And you know, it's astounding, but yeah, what a shit show. But you know, nobody's going to get to the bottom of anything.
But that's a crazy one. Like, they got him in the jail. The guards are somehow or another getting in trouble, so who knows what the guards are going to say. They might get suicided. My favorite part was the guy they chose for his cellmate. Do you see the fucking gorilla they chose for his cellmate?
Yeah. It reminded me of that that old Richard Pryor movie. I don't know if you remember that one.
The guy, look at this fucking guy.
Yeah.
This giant Goomba, this huge Italian ex-cop who's a murderer and a drug runner. I mean, this guy is built like a brick shit house, and this is Epstein's cellmate.
Yeah.
It's like, what? Like, you can't even make this stuff up. Like,
Says he never touched him.
Of course. Why would I touch him?
Nicholas Tartaglione.
Yeah. What does it say? Timeline of events in quadruple homicide? Is that what it says?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So this fucking guy, this giant...
He likes dogs, though.
Yeah, he loves dogs. They keep him from all the people that he killed. Yeah. They bark when they're coming around. You can grab your gun. It's a good move. It's just crazy. There's so many pieces to the puzzle that are so ridiculously obvious. And then when you find out that Clinton flew with him at least 26 times.
Yeah.
26 times.
Yeah, I had no idea.
Hey, Jeff was a good guy.
Yeah. No, it's just one of those things. And again, I'm not a buyer on these sort of things, but you look at it, you look at the facts around and you think there's no way in hell. Yeah. That guy must know you. You would have thought that Epstein would have said to himself, I'm gonna get killed here if I'm not careful.
Well, he probably didn't think it was ever going to get to the point where they were actually jailing him. You know, when they actually got, because remember he had that deal where he was on work release, so he could just do whatever he wanted and fuck off for 16 hours a day. Then he had to check into the jail at night.
Yeah.
And who even knows what that means? He might have checked in and just went home again. And it seems like they had set something up for him to make it very easy for him to be incarcerated for what should be a pretty heinous crime. I mean, he was
you would think
sex with underage girls,
right.
and
sex trafficking.
Yeah,
I mean, not just him doing it. Yeah,
yes.
I mean, it's just the extent to which, and so but then you look at I forget what her name is, his assistant Giselle. Yeah,
what's his name? Ghislaine.
Ghislaine Maxwell.
How do you say it? What do you say?
It has an S in it, but I've heard it pronounced with the S or without it. So Ghislaine or Ghislaine.
Okay.
I don't know.
Ghislaine or Ghislaine. Whatever. G. Let's call her G Rocker.
Yeah.
So G Rocker's out there hiding in the bushes in Colombia or something, right? Where is she?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I mean, she must be you would assume they've deposed her at this point, or you know.
She must have something. She must have some fucking kill switch where if the shit goes down, all the Clinton tapes come piling out onto the fucking floor of
somebody
Glenn
must have
Greenwald's house.
You would think. You brought it around to Glenn Greenwald.
Hey, Glenn, it's Bill. Can we talk?
Yeah, maybe you know what? Maybe I should convince. There she is. Yeah.
That's when she was at In-N-Out reading a book on ex-CIA agents who have been murdered. That's literally what she was reading a book on, right? Wasn't that? Yeah. It was about CIA operatives that have been murdered. So the idea was that what they said, what people believe, and there's many different versions of what people believe, but look how many pictures she posed for. It's so strange. But what many people believe was that what he was doing was compromising a lot of these wealthy, powerful people by getting videotapes of them hooking up with young girls, including Prince Andrew, right?
Yeah. And for whatever reason, you know.
Have you heard of anything like this before? Is this something that's been done in the past?
Not that I've heard of. I mean, I'm sure it's you know, anytime you see some freak show, it's never the first time it's happened, right?
Right.
I mean, it's so you have to assume it's happened, but to the degree that it's got this level of celebrities and big time names. I mean,
it works so well. And I'm going to tell you something after the show's over. I'll tell you something after the show's over. But
you can just tell me. It's just you and me talking. I mean, if you whisper,
I hear you in my ears.
The North Koreans
like really
used to do
loud.
that. Sorry about the North Koreans used to that was their phone security. Is they would get on the phone and when they had something really classified to talk about, they would whisper. Yeah. So I think, oh, good.
That's hilarious.
We'll never figure that out.
That's really funny.
Yeah.
Really, that's how they did it?
Yeah, yeah. Well, part of it was years ago. I think they just never believed any Westerner could understand Korean. And I think that was kind of part of it, was that they just believed we were all too stupid, or we were just so complicated that we'd never be able to figure out what they were saying in their own language.
That's the price you pay for being so insulated,
Yeah,
right? You don't really understand what's really going on in the outside world because they don't really have the internet.
When was the last time we talked about North Korea?
It's been quite a while.
We just pushed that right off the front. But
to get back, we can talk about North Korea, but to get back to this Epstein thing, is that a common strategy that intelligence agencies would use, where they would try to compromise people in order to get, like, what would be the benefit if you had, like, if the Mossad was doing that and they were doing that and using that's the theories that Epstein.
Right. Yeah, it's a good point. I'd say from an intel services perspective, I mean, one thing I will say is the U.S. And people are never going to believe this because I'm saying it. They'll say, "Oh, that's bullshit." But the U.S. The agency doesn't do that. We don't use honey traps. We don't do that sort of thing because that sort of leverage it's always going to head south on you. And so we don't, try to coerce somebody in that sort of a relationship that then we can take advantage of. And yet other services do. The Russians being one of them, they do that all the time. Israelis, they've had some very successful efforts to do that. And if you get somebody in that position, it doesn't matter how they're compromising themselves, whether you're putting themselves in with like an Epstein situation where suddenly you've got them, you got video of them with an underage person, or whether they've provided a document that they shouldn't provide. It's all this. The concept is always the same, right? It doesn't matter what that action is. You're getting them on the hook. You're getting something that's leverageable over them, and if they don't just go forward immediately, say, and turn around to their boss and say, "I'm guilty, did this, sorry," then they're compromised. And then you've got them. As an intel service, you've got them. You can start reeling the hook in because now, you know that not only did they do something that provided you with a document, even if it was an unclassified document. If I go to somebody, if I'm developing a relationship with somebody, some target overseas or whatever, and I'm thinking, all right, I'm exploring. This person's got access. They're in an interesting position. They're in an interesting job. And they've got access to information that we want to know. That's priority target. And then I want to say, okay, now I want to develop a relationship a little bit. Maybe I bump into the person at a few parties. Maybe we're in the same parent-teacher organization, whatever the shit is, right? And our kids play on the same soccer team. So then I go and I think, okay, what do I want to do? I want to test the waters a little bit. I'm not going to say, hey, listen, I understand you work at the foreign ministry here in whatever country you happen to be in. How about you give me some documents? But instead, maybe it's something different. Maybe they work at the foreign ministry. Maybe they work at a aerospace business. That's a target. And you say, but you've developed a bit of a relationship, and then you say, yeah, my kid's doing this school project, and it's all about whatever hypersonic flight, and that they work at some aerospace company, and say, do you have anything just on hypersonics, and you're not looking for anything classified, you're just looking for a research paper or a study or something, and if they come back and say, yeah, you know what, here, this is an interesting study, and they now, that act alone, they're not giving you something classified, but that act alone means something big, right? It means they were taskable in a sense, right? They responded to your request for information.
They're suckers.
Not suckers necessarily. It could be an enormously smart person, but and smart people get suckered into it. I guess you could put it that way, but. Yeah. So anyway, then you go from there. Then you ratchet it up slowly, bit by bit. If you've got the time frame to do it, maybe sometimes you've got to shorten time frame because there's a requirement to get something, and you got to accelerate the whole process. Anyway, but point being is it's all leverageable, and Epstein was obviously getting leverage on all these different people for whatever his purpose was.
What do you think? That's what the question is. Like, what could he possibly? A lot of them were scientists. He went with a lot of like celebrities. There was heads of state.
I don't think he needed money.
Right. Well, what was he?
I don't know. I mean, maybe he just, who knows? Maybe he got off on sort of being the kingpin in this whole thing, and It's a good question.
It had to be funded, right? So I mean, there had to be something valuable that they were getting from it. I'm guessing.
I don't know.
It hasn't been spelled out to me.
Yeah.
Like I've tried to figure out the angle, but I mean, I get the idea of you would have leverage over these people, you'd have them in compromising situations, and then they would do things for you. But what would they do for you?
Yeah.
Like what? Yeah. What is he getting Bill Clinton to do?
It's a good question. And providing him with access, maybe he liked being close to the seat of power, or maybe he liked being close to what he thought was like a royal family member. Maybe who knows? Because it sounds like he had all the money he needed.
Right.
So maybe it was that sort of access that blew his skirt up. I don't know, but it is interesting. But I don't think. I mean, look, it's just like been kicked to the curb. Obviously, they're doing the trial, I guess, to some degree, but I don't know where they stand.
Nothing's
going to
happen.
Yeah, nothing's going to happen.
We've already swept it under the rug, and there's already news stories out that have got our attention. We forget about things so quickly today. The news cycle is so fast. When something happens, even something as ridiculous as the Epstein case, where it's so obvious that he was murdered, and then Michael Baden goes on 60 Minutes and says this is consistent with someone who was strangled. I've never, in all my years of seeing people hanged, I've never seen them with these kind of fractures. Fractures are indicative of strangulation.
And that is one serious-minded dude too, right?
Michael
that guy,
Baden?
Tremendous amount of experience, and he doesn't blow smoke up anybody's ass, right?
No.
He's very measured, and now obviously he was there on behalf of Epstein's brother, I guess. But anyway, it's one of those things where you think, what the heck? Maybe I'm going to put that down as something we should explore.
I want to go visit that cop in jail. See what he's probably got a fur-lined cell
Taglione?
now. Yeah, he's got a giant 72-inch TV.
Hey, all the dogs with him.
Yeah, all the dogs are there. What's happening here? He's got wire marks in his hands. Fucking tighten up on that. I mean, if you're going to get someone to strangle your cellmate, that's the guy, too. I mean, he'd fucking do it in 3 seconds. He's so big.
Yeah, you don't want somebody who's got to take their time because they can't exert enough pressure.
You want some Kevin Spacey dude strangling. It's going to take forever.
Hold still.
You want some big gorilla dude.
Yeah. Oh, God. Well, I tell you what, if this new series I'm doing gets picked up for a second season, well, I'm going to recommend to the producers they put the Epstein case on there, even though it's not quite in line with what we do, but still.
Yeah. Episode number 1947 with Chris DiStefano. Shocking real-life stories about Ted Bundy and Son of Sam.
That's sick. That's my favorite follow. That's Stoic Instagram.
Oh, Stoic is great. Yeah. Ryan Holiday's great, too.
Oh, yeah, Ryan Holiday, yeah. He looks like the guy that killed 4 college students in Idaho.
He does.
That's who I thought it was. I was like, oh, the Stoic is a mass murderer.
He's out. He's out. He's writing books about just being cool about everything. But
did you hear that, by the way, with Idaho? They're thinking about bringing back the firing squad if he gets convicted.
Oh, my God. Well, they think he might have killed people in Washington State, too. Is that where it was? It was somewhere else. There was another place where he lived where similar crime took place, and they think he was studying crime in college in order to get better at it.
Right.
It's really evil. It's an evil, scary story.
Yeah.
If all this they're accusing him is accurate, it's horrific that guy was out there.
Right. Dude, you want to hear a wild story? So my mom had a friend.
Let's see if we can find out if that's true, though.
Yeah.
Which part? The part where they think that he might have committed a similar crime. Excuse me, somewhere else.
Here we go. See, this is what's happening now on an intermittent fasting stomach. I'm going to start getting crazy. It's going to, it might get bad in here.
Want to take another sniff?
Why the hell not?
All right, here we go. Ready?
Oh, that was deep.
Oh.
Joey went in.
I went in. Okay. Get in there, Chrissy. Woo, Jamie? No, Jamie said no. I didn't even get his full name out before no was coming out of his
Jamie,
mouth.
that one burned. That one fogged up my glasses. That one burned, baby.
I get it, dude. I want to lift right now. I want to do some deadlifts.
I seriously like, yeah, like I want to
put the lid on it.
I want to like start doing jujitsu with you. I don't even know how to do it.
There's nothing like a freshie when you open them up fresh.
That is a freshie.
Yeah, when you let them sit for a while, they lose a lot of their potency. Like we had one that was here for a few months and it had lost a lot of kick. But damn, when you open them fresh.
I don't see anything about other crimes. I'm looking still.
I believe it was where he was originally going to school.
Yeah, it said he was Washington State.
Yeah, but did you Google may have possibly committed similar crime in Washington State?
Washington crimes.
Okay.
Just Google may have possibly wanted for possibly committing similar crime.
A lot of serial killers come from this part of the country.
He could be major link to other murders. This is it. And this is in Newsweek.
Okay.
I don't know.
Oh, it says new evidence recovered may be a major link to the Idaho murders. He's been accused of fatally stabbing University of Idaho students. The search warrant, which was reported by the New York Times, discussed several items which were taken from his residence. Where is the thing about the other cases? Oh, here it is.
Attending another place. But.
And December 30th, he was arrested at his parents' residence in Pennsylvania. Extradited to Idaho, where he's currently charged. Koberger was attending Washington State University at the time of the murders.
Yeah, he looks like the guy from The Stoic.
But there was he does looks a lot like him. But Ryan Holiday's quite a bit more handsome. It's
Ryan
like
Holiday's
his older, like meaner brother.
Ryan Holiday, hottie with a body.
But
it says Pennsylvania was sifting through cold cases for links to him.
It was Pennsylvania.
That's where he was found.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's where. Yeah, they pulled him over, and it was in his parents' house. And because remember, the media was saying we don't have any leads, but the FBI was following him across the country.
Yeah, they can't just leak.
Yeah, you
all
can't
that
do
information. They're in the middle of an investigation of a fucking psycho.
But it is wild, like with these. He's famous now for these murders, but as you said, could be stuff before. My mom had a friend, right? Grew up in Utah. Maybe she's 18, 19 years old, I don't know, whatever year, 70s, 80s, whatever. Goes on a date with a guy, right? Normal date, just met him, I think at the supermarket. Goes on a date with this guy, and she's at the table with him, and she feels very like a ominous feeling looking at this man. She's like, I'm looking at him, and I can see like there's nothing behind his eyes. Like there's just something that I don't like about this guy. So to the point where she has never done this, she was only 18, but since this has never done this, she went to a payphone at the restaurant, called her brother, and was like, can you please come pick me up like immediately? And stayed in the bathroom until her brother was outside and went in the car and left. And she was like, I'm just creeped out by this guy. I can't explain it. I'm creeped out. All this energy, I'm creeped out. Now, this man had picked her up from her house. So the brother had a paper route. He's leaving the next morning at 5 a.m., sees some ruffling in the bushes, okay? Crazy, right? Like whatever, sees a guy running out of the bushes, says, holy shit, whatever, runs back in the house, tells his mom and dad, sister wakes up, says he was wearing like a beige jacket. She's like, that's the guy I was on a date with. Like that, he was like waiting. He must have been like waiting for me, right? Whatever. Goes on, life goes on. What a psycho, lunatic boyfriend. 3 years later, Ted Bundy on the news. She was on a date with Ted Bundy before he had committed any murders, or he had committed murders but had not been famous for it yet, had not been convicted of it yet. She said when he saw him, she literally almost fell out of her chair because she was like, that look. She said that Ted Bundy, about, how everyone says he's so handsome, whatever, she said he would get a look over him when he was preying on a victim, which felt she was being preyed on, that she doesn't even look, he was like, he does not look like that. His face configures and contorts to something that looks so sinister that she literally was like, get me away from him now. So I was like, whoa, fucking Teddy B. Imagine you on a date with with a young Teddy B. That'd be fucking nuts, dude.
So he had already committed murders. So he was looking to murder her, and he was giving that energy out.
She said, based off when all his crimes were exposed, from what the FBI said, when she went on a date with him, let's say it was 1978, he had already been convicted, connected to murders in other parts of that. Because his first murders were in like the Utah region, and that's where they were.
Holy shit.
Wild, right?
Holy shit.
Dude. Fucking, it's pretty nuts. And then I think I might have said this on the last one, but T.T. Jerry, when she was in prison, served prison time with the son of Sam. She shared a wall with the son of Sam. 2 murderers. She shared a wall with the son of Sam and Ronald DeFeo from the Amityville Horror House, the man who killed all those people in the movie The Amityville Horror, who was really based off Ronald DeFeo. She was in prison with both of them at the same time, and the prisoners from Escape from Dannemora, who like that Showtime show that they made. So she was in like real deal prisoners. But she said the son of Sam Now, this was months before the Netflix documentary came out. T.T. Jerry said, she's like, the son of Sam, David, did not kill all those people. He was involved in a cult. There were other murderers, but the city pinned it all on him. And then a few months later, this Netflix documentary came out a couple of years ago, basically saying that most likely Son of Sam did not kill all those people. He killed maybe one or two, but there was other murderers that just got away with it.
Do you know the Henry Lee Lucas story?
Henry Lee Lucas. Well,
Henry Lee Lucas, they made a film about him called Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer.
Okay.
And it's a guy who got arrested for 62 murders. And he was basically a drifter, and he was traveling across the country murdering people.
Okay.
But they think that what really happened was they came up to him and they said, hey, Henry, there was a few people that were killed behind the bushes in Indianapolis in 76. We'd sure love to solve that crime. Was that you? Yep, that's me. I killed them too. Well, did you do it with a knife? Because we found a knife. Yep, knife. Killed him with a knife.
Yeah.
And this guy was basically a dullard and may have killed people. Like, a lot of drifters have killed people. But it seems like, Google that. Make sure I'm correct on this. I think now they think that they attributed a bunch of crimes to him that he couldn't possibly have committed.
It's a wild thing.
The depraved serial killer who confessed to hundreds of murders. See, this is it. So it was more than 62, which is what he was. I think he was originally charged with 600 people. Okay. Drawn together by shared childhood trauma, Henry Lee Lucas and Otis Toole became lovers, then serial killers who terrorized America in the 1970s. So but he confessed to hundreds of murders, but they think that some of them he couldn't possibly have done.
But did he stay in prison for the rest of his life because of it?
Yeah, I think they might have killed him
in prison.
I don't know what happened. I don't know if he's still alive. But see if he got if that's a story that they got him to confess to a bunch of murders that he couldn't have actually done.
That's a common thing, though, right? People confess to stuff all the time. There's a show on Apple TV. It was called Blackbird. It just came out last year. It's about a real story about a guy who, what his tactic would be, is he murdered a lot of people, but he would say to the police, "Oh, I murdered that girl in that county. I'm confessing to it." But then they would go through the research and be like, no, you couldn't have possibly. But he would cop to it. And then the cops would be like, he did that like 5 times. And they'd be like, every county he was investigating, they'd be like, that's what he does. He confesses to murders. He's a bullshitter. But he really was killing people. He was confessing to false ones so he could get away with the real ones.
Holy shit.
Wild, right?
Holy shit.
So it's like some of these guys are so smart. Dude, the show this actor, I think is William Hauser, something. This is one of the best actors in my generation. No, Joe, I don't know if you know this guy. This guy's acting is like Daniel Day-Lewis level. He is a phenomenal actor. When you watch the show Blackbird, you cannot believe it. Where I'm like,
and this is on Apple Plus,
Apple TV. This is one of the best shows I've seen. Wow. Came out last summer.
No shit.
This kid is literally like phenomenal. And then I'm watching 101 Dalmatians a day later with my kids, and he's in that. I'm like, look at this fucking lunatic.
He plays Richard Jewell in the Richard Jewell movie about the Olympic Park bombing.
Yep.
Wow.
Unbelievable actor. He was also in that sketch show, I Think You Should Leave on Netflix, which is one of the funniest sketch shows I've ever seen in my life. He's got great sketches in that. That guy, but that show, Blackbird, was it's unbelievable. So basically what happens is this guy who's from he's from a bunch of movies. This kid is ripped, by the way. This kid has to be intermittent fasting.
He's in not the Watchmen.
Samuel L. Jackson's in it. Yeah. It's a famous movie, and he's excellent in it. But basically, the premise of it's based on a true story. This guy, the hottie with the body, he gets convicted 10 years in prison for gun charges. I think he's a guy out of Massachusetts. So, and he was a good con man, right? This is all real. Good con man, could gift a gab, whatever. So the FBI wants to pin the guy with the mutton chops, Hauser. They want to pin, Larry Hall is his name in real life, they want to pin murders on him. They know that they've kind of caught up to his game now. They know that he lies about murders here to commit murders here. They know it, but they got to get him to confess to one of these murders because they found the girl's body because he was killing kids, like 14-year-old girls, like brutal shit, raping them, horrific. So they say to this kid, to the jacked guy, they say, look, you got the gift of gab. You got 10 years in federal prison, okay? You're 3 months into your sentence. We're going to transfer you to this maximum security prison where Larry Hall is. If you can get him to confess to the murder of this girl that we have evidence on, and you can get that, your sentence is commuted immediately and you're out of prison. That's all you got to do. But he was in a minimum security prison, so he would be able to either coast through 10 years or take a chance and go to the prison with murderers, rapists, and potentially be murdered in the shower stall. But if he can get this guy, Gift of Gab, and get him to confess, then he'll get out.
Holy shit.
And that's what the show's about. And it was, dude, amazing show. Like, edge of my seat. It was one of the best shows I've seen in a long time.
That's
I want to watch it. I want to watch it again on smelling salts.
Thank you for bringing that up. I'm fucking pumped about that. I've been looking for a new show.
Yeah. Oh, and by the way, let me just finish the thought about Jerry. What I want to say is the Son of Sam thing. He said, he was a serial killer, yes, and don't get me wrong, murderer, deserves to be in prison. He said the biggest fucking lunatic. Like, he was like the only person who I met. I was like, this guy needs to be like either put to death or kept like in a cage, like under the jail. He said was Ronald DeFeo, who the Amityville Horror House guy, because he said he would cook for him all the time, Ronald DeFeo, and he would like let Ronald DeFeo like jerk off to him. They would put like a prison mirror, and he would like, because he was trans, Jerry, so he would shake his ass a little bit and let Ronald like get his rocks off, whatever. He didn't care. He said, but every morning he would make Ronald DeFeo Jr. like a little breakfast and his little, they had like little hot stoves in there. They would let prisoners like Jerry, after you did enough time, give you some stuff. He'd make a little bacon and stuff for him. And he said every morning, like clockwork, 7 days a week, every morning, bring Ronald his food and say, how was your night, Ronald? How you feeling? He was like, good, I feel good. I didn't kill my grandma. It's the only thing. I killed everyone in that house, but I did not get my grandma. So, but everything else, other than that, it's good. And Jerry'd be like, okay. And then keep moving. So he's like, still, he's in prison and that is true. The only one he didn't kill in that house, the grandma either got out or wasn't there, but he was like, there's no rehabilitation for that man. He genuinely believes if he does not kill he would say to him, if I don't kill my grandma, I'm not getting into heaven. So he had it warped. He killed his entire family, and he's like, that's how I get to heaven. But I got to get the grandma. And then he died in prison recently. But I was like, whoa, shit. I know, it's wild.
In episode number 1934, Lex Friedman discusses disturbing details of a killer's Google research.
Yeah, what are you doing with that girlfriend?
Yeah,
she keeps,
come on, Lex.
She keeps being mean to you, nagging you all the time. You don't need her.
Coming off like a bitch, Lex. You don't want to do that. She's not going to respect you. You're going to have to break up with her just so she respects you.
Why don't you murder her, Lex?
Yeah, Lex. There's a way to get away with it. I'm just saying. Joking around, buddy. Joking around. Next thing you know, it's talking you into the swamp with a fucking body bag.
Did you hear the story about the guy that Googled all this stuff about like what to do with your body?
Oh my God. He Googled till like 9:30 in the morning. That sick fuck. Like, how dumb. I guess some people. Look, we know. This is fact. We know some people are just really fucking dumb. They really can't see the future. I want to know if that guy was on anything, too. I want to know if he was on any kind of psych meds.
Can you tell me the story again?
Oh, some guy killed his wife, man. And they found his Google search. It's horrific. It's like how to dismember a body. How long does it take for a body to dissolve? It's like, ugh. Is it best to cut someone up or move them whole? Like, he just Googled the most horrific, and he did it for like the entire night into the morning.
Is there results for that in a Google search?
What happens if you put body parts in ammonia? How to clean blood from a wooden floor, dismemberment and the best ways to dispose of a body. Can identification be made on partial remains? How long does DNA last? Like, what the fuck, man? How long before a body starts to smell? Can he be charged with murder without a body? This guy is fucking, it's so sick. So this dude just goes through Google all night long trying to figure out how to get away with murder.
Well, he might actually get off on just asking the question, right?
No, because then they found a bloody knife.
Yeah, like he went to the store and
I'm not like pushing back. I'm just saying he might also get off on.
I don't think he's getting off at all. I don't think he has a chance of getting off.
I have a lot of questions
they
about
found the knife.
Human nature after, maybe I'm naive in this, but I watched the Dahmer documentary.
Yeah.
No, not the documentary.
The movie?
The movie.
Yeah.
And then also the documentary is like, it gives you very different perspectives on what, like...
Are you a Dahmer sympathizer now, boy?
No.
Okay.
No. But, like, it makes you realize...
like you're going that direction.
No, it makes you realize that some people's brain is broken.
Yes. Yeah, I think so.
And that's like...
Yeah.
And then some people's brain might be a little bit broken, and they're still functioning members of society, but they might be extreme narcissists, they might be sociopaths, psychopaths, and you have to kind of understand that the world is full of potentially, not full of, but has some charming psychopaths walking around.
100%. And some of them are probably like really successful in like hedge funds and shit.
Yeah.
You know, people that can just like move money around, and people that are CEO of certain companies that might be making products that kill people.
Interesting.
No body, lots of Googling, murder case against Brian Walsh, maybe hard to prove, experts say. But I thought they had a knife in the blood.
This was it's a couple days ago, so Friday, I guess.
Oh, okay. I had read that they found a bloody knife. Just the whole thing is so fucked. But I want to know if he's on something. I'd be really fascinated, because there's certain drugs that will like alleviate. You won't worry about shit. So maybe he's like not worrying about like Googling all this stuff. Oh, it's all gonna work out. You know, I'm gonna kill her, but it's all gonna work out. And he's like Googling, or he might be on speed. You know, a lot of people are on speed, man. A lot of people are on Adderall. It's fucking stunning. It's stunning how many like hyped up people we have out there are really like, we have a speed culture. It makes you very efficient. You get shit done. You got plenty of energy, and some people love it. Mm-hmm. And like, how much is that flavoring our culture? Wouldn't it be nice to get rid of that, Lex? Just phase that out.
All drugs, yeah, in general.
All problems with the mind. Mm-hmm. We could phase
mushrooms
it out.
only.
Well, you could do it that way, but that takes a lot of work. Or we could just genetically engineer it from the jump. No more emotions.
No more emotions. Because emotions, you know, life is suffering, Dostoevsky and Nietzsche. Ultimately, you're going to, every good thing you have, eventually going to lose. Every hello with the person you love is eventually going to be a goodbye. Why say hello ever?
Why say hello ever again? Also, why? Why does it have to be like that? Like, we have this idea in our head that this way we live is like ultimately, because to us it provides emotions, and because it creates dilemmas and solutions and conflict and resolution. There's so much going on in our minds all the time when it comes to interacting with each other that we feel like it's imperative for existence. But why? It's just because it's the only way we've known. You know, you have to suffer in order, but why do you have to suffer in order to be happy? Wouldn't it be better if you're just happy? Like, do we really fucking need to suffer? Couldn't that be engineered out? Now, this is coming from a person who purposely suffers all the time so that I could stay happy. And it does work. But God, do I have to do it that way?
Well, there's an incredible computation machine we call evolution that has constructed human beings. You want to mess with that? You want to get a few software engineers from San Francisco to mess with the computation system that is evolution, that is Earth.
Yes.
This giant computer that for billions of years spent 1 billion years on bacteria trying to figure shit out before it advanced. And now it went through all of these incredible stages. This entire ecosystem that we call life on Earth, probably planted here by aliens. That and recently these monkeys started to get super clever. And now we're going to completely change everything.
Yes. You know why?
Why?
Because that's a part of it.
Yeah.
That is a part of evolution, is the monkeys figuring out how to fuck with everything.
Well, that's probably why we haven't have any definitive evidence of aliens from out there, because the monkeys eventually start fucking with things and destroy themselves.
They turn themselves into starfish. Whoops. Yeah.
Episode number 1362 with Lenny Clark. Joe and Lenny share stories of meeting future murderers.
I got an old lady story. When we lived at the barracks, there's 14 comedians living in that place in Howard Square. I don't know if you ever came by, because I was pretty high back then. The barracks was an apartment that Mike and I had, and we
what
opened
year was
it.
This?
Oh God, it was 80s. You know, in the beginning. You know, when stand-up.
So it was probably before my day. I came in 88.
No, it was so 85.
And by Mike, you're saying Mike Clark.
Yeah, right. So we had this house, and it was like 3 or 4 bedrooms, and Kenny Rogerson's room, which was like a closet with a sheet over, we refer to it as the sperm room. And Kenny lived and we had, the rent was $165 a month. The landlord's name was Wing Wong, and we were working at the Ding Ho for Shun Lee. So $165 between sometimes 10 guys. We didn't have it. You know, we were blowing it. All right. So now every comedian who came in from out of town, they didn't have to go to a hotel. You just go by the barracks. There was a key under the mat. At the end, there was like 11 keys under the mat. But there was this old lady next door on the third floor apartment. And we would rage all night. I would break windows. I just love the sound of breaking glass. We had a window guy on call, because people saying, it's freezing, Lenny. Oh, call the window guy. I just love to throw things through glass. I remember Sweeney ducked, and I put a bottle through the window, and he's laying on the floor, and I go, Sweeney, what's wrong with you? I'm just having fun. He goes, don't talk down to me. I go, well, you're lying on the floor. Get up. So now this woman, older woman, she goes, I said, hey, I hate you, Lenny Clark. I hate you. I said, listen, I'm going to the store. You want me to get you anything? And she yelled at the top, Lenny Clark, I only live to see you dead, right? And all the neighbors, every neighbor that loved me, right? Oh, Joe, it gets worse. So now, I'd send the flowers every now and then, and she'd throw them off the balcony. I don't want your fucking flower. I want you dead, right? So she ends up getting murdered.
Oh, no.
Like cut up and like decapitated. Oh, yeah. So the cops come to the house one day, and I'm laying in my bed, puking in a bucket, and Rogerson comes in, and he waits. He said, did you murder the lady next door last night? I go, no. He goes, okay, you can come in. And the cops come in. Okay. And they go, Lenny, we don't think it was you. We got to ask you questions. Where were you last night? And they go, I don't remember. I go, but I know I got here later. It worked out. I was at the ding, and then we hung out after hours, and I don't know where it was, but then I get home. But, that woman, I don't think they ever solved the case, but it definitely wasn't me because I was too lazy to walk up 3 flights of stairs. We used to have police cars park in her parking space. She didn't have a car, but we'd have the paddy wagon parked down below. It was crazy.
So you'd have the cops come over and party with you?
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Most of them got thrown off the force.
They never solved?
They never solved that case as far as I know.
There was a guy that I used to train with who got arrested. I don't know if you remember this case, but they took this guy and they were breaking his bones with a hammer and then injecting him with cocaine to keep him awake because he was blacking out from the pain. Oh. And they cut his hands off, they cut his head off, they cut everything off. And this dude that I knew got arrested for it. And when I asked him about it, he knew something. Like, it was one of those things where, like, you ask someone, like, I go, they arrested you. I go, why would they arrest you? And it was like this, I don't know nothing. I was like, oh, you know something. I was like, holy shit. I was like, oh my God, I might know a fucking serious murderer.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he went to jail for something else. I forget what he went to jail. I knew him when I was 16, and he went to jail, and then he came out. And when he came out, like, all his tattoos, he had scars all over all of his tattoos. Like, apparently he tried to burn his tattoos off in the joint. And he was, like, just a different person. Like, his time in jail, and I guess he was in jail for, like, maybe 5 years from when I knew him.
Wow.
And he came out 5 years later and started training again before he got arrested. And just super spooky to be around somebody that you think might have done that.
No, I know of a few murderers that, yeah. I mean, I didn't know at the time when I met them, but over the years I've gone, oh my, well, the guy who got the pass, Johnny Manorano, he was on 16 Minutes. He shops at Stop and Shop in Somerville. And people go, you know what that is? I go, who? Johnny Manorano. He go, hey, Lenny. I went, oh, hey, Johnny. 25 murders. And
how's he out?
Deals. I mean, he did time. He did a lot of time.
But
he was on 60. No, 25 murders. Come on, are you kidding?
It seems like he should be in jail
Sammy
forever.
the Bull. How many did Sammy the Bull kill? And he was out dealing. He was out dealing meth in Arizona.
I think he's still out.
Yeah, he is.
I think he's out again.
Yeah. I mean, I got no beef with him.
I don't either.
So, one of my buddies in high school, his name was Bubba Good. He was the funniest person I ever met in my life, without a doubt. One day he stole 12 red Corvettes, and lined them up outside. And in one of the Corvettes, there was a briefcase full of cash. And he went in and he bought the entire lunchroom. Lunch is on me. At high school, right? Lunch is on me.
He stole Corvettes in high school?
He stole Corvettes. Oh, yeah. And he lined them up outside.
Jesus Christ.
Oh, he was amazing. So he goes to jail. He goes to Walpole. You remember Walpole State Prison, okay? So we're doing a show at Walpole. A couple of guys asked me to come in. Yeah. So they said, Mr. Clark, before you come in, we just want to let you know if there's any drugs or drug remnants on you, you're not going to be released. And I went, oh, let me change my clothes. So I changed my clothes. I went in and I did the show. And it was really...
So they would swab you?
Yeah, it was... They just... It was,
so if they swabbed you and they found coke on your shirt,
you're staying. Yeah, and they explain that. And this is like 35 years ago, right? So, and this was when Walpole was still maximum security, I mean, the worst of the worst. So we go in, and I'm with DJ and a couple of people.
DJ Hazard?
Yeah, DJ Hazard, and I think Sweeney.
How's he doing?
I think there was a cancer thing, and then he beat that. And but I got stories about, but hey, good guy. Oh my God, remind me about DJ. I want to finish this. So I'm on stage. And I'm thinking, hey, man, Bubba's in here, I think. Right? And he jumps up on stage. And I go, Bubba. He goes, how you doing? He goes, I'm in here under an assumed name. I'm in here under Danny. This is 35 years ago. He's in Walpole under an assumed name. I mean, could that be? Well, anyway, he gets out. And then he murders some guy, and he goes back, and he's in for double life now, 2 murders. And I said to him, Bubba, why'd you kill the guy? He goes, he was talking shit. He's just a little bit of a guy, but funny. I mean, he's the type of guy, if someone wanted to kick his ass, you could make them laugh so hard you couldn't punch him. He was that funny. And now he's been in for, I want to visit him, but, they said it's not a good idea, but I'm going to go visit him. I'm old now. He's been over 30 years now.
It's so funny how, if you're in the nightclub business, like we are, you're going to run into people along the way that have done some horrible shit.
Oh. I know a guy who sawed a guy's head off.
With a saw?
I think a sword. One of those like samurai swords, and then threw it on a guy's lawn. I mean, there was drugs involved. I mean, obviously. I remember. It was crack, but crack before crack. What was the freebase? Yeah. Freebase wasn't as bad as crack. That was for people with money.
That was the Richard Pryor days.
Okay,
Richard Pryor was in the freebase.
So the first time I'm freebasing at like an MBTA station in South Boston, and I think Kennison was there, and this guy who's away for life now too, remained nameless, but I took a hit, and I'm passing out. I mean, I'm so high I'm passing out, and all I could hear was, what are we going to do with the body? That was the last thing I heard.
Whose body?
Me.
You? If you died?
Yeah.
Jesus Christ. They thought you were overdosing?
Yeah, I thought it was, I can't, we were smoking that stuff, and you're thinking, I used to start my own heart. Boom. It punch as hard as I can. Oh, God. Because when I finally went to the doctors and had the atrial fibrillation and all the heart damage they did, they said, well, what do you think it was? Well, maybe the weight, because I was almost 400 pounds. And I go, what about coke? And they said, well, you had to do an awful lot of coke. I said, well, there's a small mountain in Peru that's missing. You think it's really that much? And I go, oh yeah.
Episode number 1774 with Josh Dubin examines Melissa Lucio's death row case and possible wrongful conviction.
Melissa Lucio is set to be executed in less than 90 days. And there is hopefully forming and will continue to form enough of a groundswell of support for her. She's been on death row more than a decade, I think close to 15 years. And she's accused of killing her child. And I want to preface the story of Melissa Lucio by saying, if you're inspired by anything I say and you want to do anything, if you just Google Melissa Lucio, and it's Lucio and Innocence Project, right on the landing page of the Innocence Project, you will get to information about how you can support right now. But, here's someone, and this goes back to rebuilding communities and why this is so important, right? This is someone that was born into awful circumstances, history of sexual abuse that started when she was 6 years old, and finds herself being interrogated by the police. And why I reference why it's so important to building communities, not that that's going to cure all instances of sexual abuse, but oftentimes sexual abuse happens in lower socioeconomic, depressed areas where there isn't the social, emotional intelligence that it's proliferated through generations. It's not always, but she was born into awful circumstances and not very well off, and she's at the hands of this terrible abuse. Why I tell that story is with stronger communities, I think we get less instances of that, and many other things. But the reason why I raise that is because someone that has had past trauma like that is way more susceptible to being broken down during an interrogation because they have a certain vulnerability to them. So she is the mother of 12 and is pregnant with twins and is accused of killing her child. There's no physical evidence of any abuse whatsoever. And she's interrogated over and over again. And you can watch clips of the interrogation online. And the culmination of this 5-hour interrogation was, I guess I did it. And you really have to invest in just understanding why people confess to crimes they didn't commit. This is not an uncommon phenomenon. A lot of wrongful incarceration cases start with a false confession. And the false confession is hard for people to understand because the reaction that it invokes in folks is that I would never confess to a crime I didn't commit. I don't care what you do to me. I don't care what pressure you put on me. That's just A, not true, and B, you have no idea what it's like unless you have been through it. And the best example is a starting place that I can give, and we'll get back to Melissa in a minute. And I'd like everybody to think about and really sit through this emotion. You're driving in your car, and you hear the sirens and see the lights go on. Think about what that feels like. For most people, it's a rush of adrenaline. It's a raise in your blood pressure. And it's the release of hormones that you probably know the names of and I don't. Even if you weren't speeding, didn't run the stop sign, whatever it is, for a minor traffic violation. So start there. When you are having an interaction with law enforcement, it is a stress-inducing event, even if it's because you're being pulled over for speeding. There is no one among us that will deny that. Now, try to put yourself in a windowless room where on the day of losing your child, or in the weeks or months following losing your child, you are being accused of doing that. And try to wrap your head around the grief and the depth of the pain, the spectrum of emotions that comes along with trying to cope with that. And add that to your already existing vulnerabilities. And the psychology that goes into that is very complex and very well documented and well studied. There's a professor at John Jay College in New York named Saul Kassin who has done some of the most famous experiments about this. You can read about why people falsely confess. There's tons of great stuff to read about it. But she was one of the most vulnerable candidates for it. And she finally said, I guess I did it. And the way you determine whether or not somebody is falsely confessing to something is you start to match the physical characteristics of the crime to what they say they did. And if you're not seeing that they match up, it's a strong indication of a false confession. Popular example that most people can latch onto is Brendan Dassey, who my dear friend Laura Nyrider, who was in Making a Murderer and runs this really amazing social justice organization for the wrongfully incarcerated up in at Northwestern, and is handling his case. Brendan Dassey, he was Stephen Avery's nephew in the Making the Murder. The things that they were getting him to say He was saying, okay, I did X, but really Y happened. They'd say, no, say Y happened. So you start to match the disparity between what they're confessing to. And what happens to Melissa Lucio is something similar. They're trying to supply her with details. They're trying to force her to say things. She doesn't know the answers. She's dealing with the enormity of the death of her child. She's pregnant. And she finally says, I guess I did it.
What are they accusing her of?
Killing her child.
But of how?
I think it was manual strangulation. You can read about the case on the Innocence Project.
Do they know what the kid actually died from?
They know now, and her experts show that it was not. I don't want to speak about the case in details without giving people a chance to read the details and decide for themselves, because getting behind something is not something you should do because somebody says it on a podcast. I encourage people to do their own research. And frankly, I don't know enough about the details of the nooks and crannies of the case. But I know enough to know that the people that I'm close with that are working on her case have done the amount of due diligence that I would do and way more. And what I do know is that they had CP, Child Protective Services records to go through that didn't document a single instance of physical violence toward kids. And as a starting point, the statistic on this is staggering. 70% of women that were exonerated are exonerated for crimes that never happened.
70?
So let me say that again. Of the women that have been exonerated in the United States for crimes they did not commit are exonerated of crimes that never actually occurred. They either turn out to be accidents, suicides, or no crime happened at all. So that's the starting point. I just think that if you go and read about her case, and if you were ever like, I want to do something right now, that is something that the governor's name here is Governor Abbott, I believe.
Yes.
And a lot of people lose hope, but when it came to Rodney Reed and others, things happen, and when there's a groundswell of support, things can happen. And before we go taking the life of a mother of 14 kids, she had to deliver her twins from in jail, from death row.
Jesus Christ.
We better be really sure.
And she's been in jail for how long?
14 years on death row. And, before we go, if we have any pause at all, we stop. It's interesting. So go to the Innocent, if you Google Innocence Project and Melissa Lucio, Lucio, there's a very specific way that you can sign on to a petition and a very specific way you can contribute and learn about her case. And, I deal with this often. And this is more of a question for you, because I don't know the answer, and it's a riddle I've been trying to solve for more than 20 years. We like to think of ourselves as impartial, right? So whenever I'm an alleged expert in jury selection, that was like my initial claim to fame. I wrote a book with a federal judge called The Law of Juries, and that was like the sexiest part of what I did, right? I was the jury expert. And when you're picking a jury, you're not really picking a jury, you're deselecting people, because you don't have the ability to say, I want Joe and Jamie and Mary and Cindy. You only have the ability to say, I don't want Joe and I don't want Mary and I don't want Jamie. So it's really deselecting. And the psychology behind that is, let me get rid of the people that I think are not, in a criminal case, for instance, are not going to presume my client innocent. And the great fallacy of our system of justice perhaps the biggest fallacy is this notion that we presume people innocent until proven guilty. It's something we like to say, and it's something that we like to trot out there as what makes us different from the rest of the world. And we say we're the only system of justice. It's just not true. If we're honest with ourselves, the first thing you think about when someone has been accused of a crime is that they must have done it. And now, I don't accept my own opinion on it. My firm, there are tons of independent studies on it. I had my firm conduct a study on it with thousands of participants. And close to 90% of people polled, when they respond anonymously, say, if I hear someone is accused of a crime, I assume they are guilty. All right? So there is no presumption of innocence. So my question is, there have been decades and decades of lawyers far more gifted than I'll ever be that have tried to crack this code. And I can encourage you to, serve on juries and not look for ways out. I can encourage you that when you stare at the person sitting in that seat at the table, you look at an innocent person and say, that is an innocent man or woman. And there are all sorts of tricks and, devices of persuasion that great criminal defense lawyers from Clarence Darrow to Ted Wells to, Roy Black and Barry Scheck and, every great Jerry Shargell, Jerry Lefcourt, Lisa Wayne, the best criminal defense lawyers I know have tried. You are shrouded in a blanket of innocence, and that shroud does not fall from your shoulder, not a bit, unless and until the government can tear it away from you. And when you go back into that room to deliberate, you should walk through that door saying, we are dealing with an innocent man or woman, unless and until the government can meet its burden of proof beyond reasonable doubt. But these are just words. And the problem that we have is that if you look at the rate of conviction in most federal jurisdictions across the country, it's over 98%. And that can't be. It just can't be. So my question to you is, and I don't know that you know the answer, or I invite people to sort of, how do you impress this notion of the presumption of innocence?
Episode number 1459 with Tom O'Neill questions the official Tate murders narrative and hidden motives.
So these groups were trying to incite violence. Now we get to the motive of the official narrative of the Manson murder, or the Tate LaBianca murders, which is what the prosecutor Vince Bugliosi presented at trial, which was the famous helter-skelter motive. In a nutshell, Manson believed that there was going to be a race war, and he wanted to incite this race war because he had convinced his followers that through messages he received from the Beatles' White Album, from their lyrics, from biblical Old Testament prophecies, that he had been told that he was going to be the savior of the world. And once a race war started, he would hide his family in a bottomless pit in the desert. And when the race war ended, with the blacks winning, the blacks would be framed for murders. The Manson family would emerge and repopulate the planet with their perfect offspring and dominate the blacks.
This was Vince Bugliosi's narrative, or
there was talk of that. There was a philosophy of helter-skelter at the Spahn Ranch, where they lived in '68 and '69, that Manson would discuss. But whether or not it was the motive for the murders is I raise serious questions about that in the book.
Manson would discuss it in that way, that there was going to be a race war and that they would emerge and then their offspring.
Yeah, except for the fact that what's questioned. So the way Bugliosi was able to convict Manson wasn't at the Tate house when the murders happened. He had, in the official story, dispatched Susan Atkins, Patricia Krenwinkel, Leslie Kasabian and Tex Watson to the house, the former house of Terry Melcher. They didn't know who lived there, but just to kill everybody. And as Manson allegedly said, leave something witchy. He wanted it to look like blacks had killed these, all he knew was they were wealthy, beautiful whites. And he wanted to ignite the race war, because if the Panthers got blamed for these murders, then the police would crack down on them, they'd revolt, the revolution would happen, it would spread across the whole world, and then when it was over and the blacks had prevailed, they were too dumb, Manson believed, to be able to run the world. That's when he would come out with his followers of their hole in the desert and take over the planet. Now, Bugliosi said in interviews that I didn't have until after he and I stopped speaking, which was when he started threatening me with lawsuits and other things in the about 2006-07. I discovered 2 or 3 interviews he gave in the early 70s where he was asked if he believed that Manson really believed this craziness. And Bugliosi said, I don't think Charlie believed in it. He got his followers to, but he never believed in that. He was too smart. He was a con man. What the interviewers didn't ask him in the follow-up was, well, if he didn't believe it, why did he send his followers to kill these people the first night at the Tate House, the second night in Los Feliz, as, upper middle class couple, the La Biancas? Then, what was the motive? And that's one of my biggest regrets, is that I slipped, and they were kind of obscure. One was a Penthouse interview, the other was a regional newspaper, but that I didn't have them. I thought I had done all the research. I thought I read every interview he'd ever given, but I didn't have it at hand to say, all right, Vince, I get that, because I don't think Manson believed it either. Then what was the motive for the murders? Why were they sent there to kill? And that's what the book explores.
So do you think Bugliosi was operating with the knowledge that Manson was a part of these programs?
Oh, that's the big question,
Yeah.
Again, I lay it out in the book. So I interviewed Bugliosi. He was not the first, but one of the first interviews I did when it was a magazine assignment. He invited me to his house in Pasadena. So it was April of 99. We spent literally 6 hours together. He was so kind and generous with his time. I thought I scored. I had the prosecutor. He hadn't given interviews. He always gave interviews about this, but he hadn't for a number of years. He agreed to do it for whatever reason. And during the course of that interview, I arrived at his house, went into his kitchen. His wife gave me Italian cookies, coffee and lemonade. Then he and I went out to lunch in the valley somewhere. He showed me some of the sites connected to the murders. Then we went back to the house and talked till sunset. And towards the end of the 6 hours, I did realize that even though he was talking nonstop and I'm recording everything, he hadn't given me anything new or different. I mean, I had just finished Helter Skelter. I read it for the first time because I'd never been interested in the case till I got the assignment. So I did what we call the Hail Mary pass in journalism, which is you ask someone if there's anything they could tell you off the record, not for attribution, that will help them to get something fresh. Because I was still searching for an angle. This is the first month of reporting. And Vince kind of thought a minute, and he goes, turn it off, turn it off. So I turned off the recorder. And he did, I could tell he was debating, but then he told me something, which I'm not sure if, I don't think I revealed it till the last chapter. It was off the record, it was salacious, pretty shocking. In the larger picture, it doesn't change anything really, but it showed me that he had a very different account of something very important in the narrative. And I took that away and I thought, wow, I'm going to...
What did he say?
Well, first let me explain. It was off the record.
Right.
In 2005, when I interviewed him for the second time, and all things went to hell, and he started threatening me and with lawsuits and writing letters to my publisher trying to get them to stop the book, he wrote about what he told me, and he claimed that I had dragged it out of him and embellished it and all this. But once he put that in a letter, the lawyers at the publisher said, well, it's not on the record anymore because these documents will all be in a civil trial when he sues you, which he said he was about to do.
Not off the record, you mean?
Yeah, they said now it's on the record. I mean, he's violated his agreement with you. So what he told me was that famously an audio or videotape was taken from the Tate house by the police, the first day after the murders. They found it hidden up in a loft. Home videotaping was relatively new at that point. Not a lot of people had cameras, but Roman Polanski did. And in Helter Skelter, Vince says in the book, that the police took the tape, viewed it, and it was just Sharon and Roman making love, and returned it to the loft. Roman was in London at the time of the murders. He came back immediately, and then about a week later, he went up to the house, and one of the first things he did was he went up to the loft, and he never even knew that they took it, allegedly. That's the story. Found it and took it. Vince told me originally off the record that the tape wasn't of Roman and Sharon making love. It was Sharon being forced to have sex with two men against her wishes, and he said Roman was the one who was making it because you could hear him in the background. If you read you've read those chapters, Roman did a lot of bad stuff to Sharon.
Yeah, he seemed like a terrible person.
He was pretty bad, yeah.
Well, when you hear what he did, the reason why he can never come back to the country, you go, well, okay.
It makes sense.
It makes sense.
Yeah, it's not that surprising.
He's a monster.
Yeah. I mean,
a monster that's really good at making movies.
Yeah. Which we're not going to see anymore because the last one he made, which is supposed to be one of his best, they're not going to release it in the United States. But once I had that, that's kind of the first rabbit hole I went down because I'm like, well, if this was different in the official narrative, what else might they have changed? So Vince and I were talking on the phone about every week for 2 months. He was so accessible. So I'd be interviewing people. And one of the first things after that I found was the perjuries by Terry Melcher on the stand. I got access to 2 separate files and found that Melcher, Doris Day's son, record producer, young boy wonder, who lived in the house with his girlfriend Candy Bergen on Cielo up until January 1st of 69, then moved to Malibu, and Roman and Sharon moved into the house in February. Melcher was the part of the motive for why the house was picked. And again, this is getting into the weeds, but it's hard to talk about any of this without this exposition. Manson sent his followers up there to instill fear in Melcher by killing all the occupants of his former house who were strangers to them. I don't believe that. That's the official narrative. But Melcher testified at the grand jury and then at the trial that he had 3 fleeting encounters with Manson, one at Beach Boy drummer Dennis Wilson's, 2 there, I think, and then, 1 there, and then 2 when he went to the Spahn Ranch in April and May of 69 to listen to them play music with the possibility of recording them. And he didn't think they were talented enough and told Charlie that in so many words. And then, again, this is the official narrative. That's when Manson kind of spiraled and went crazy because he'd been rejected by Terry Melcher. So he decided it was time for Helter Skelter, the race war. And again, a lot of these things don't add up when you step back. Well, why didn't he kill Terry Melcher at the house in Malibu because he knew where he had moved to? Why did he just go to this other place and kill strangers? Maybe Terry wouldn't connect it, all that. The bottom line was Terry on the stand and in all the official accounts of this case, of which there are many, not just Helter Skelter, but lots of books, his relationship with Manson ended in May of 69. He said he never saw him again. When the murders happened at his former house, it never occurred to him it had anything to do with him or that Manson did it. I stopped believing that a month or 2 in. And then I found these documents showing that Melcher actually had gone to see Manson twice at the Spahn Ranch after the murders, and then once all the way out at Death Valley where they had the Barker Ranch, where they were hiding when they were finally captured in the fall of 69. Once I could document that changed the whole, it didn't change, but impacted the motive. I mean, Melcher was a principal witness, again, because Charlie wasn't at the Tate house. Bugliosi had to convict him of conspiracy, in other words, ordering people to go up there and kill. And he had to have a reason for that house, so Terry provided it by saying, yes, I did go out there and try to record them. And then eventually in the question it came out, but I never had anything to do with them again. I had no idea. I never saw him or heard from him again.
The motivation was revenge on Terry Melcher because Terry Melcher didn't turn him into a star.
Right.
So this is what Bugliosi was using, but it didn't make any sense because Melcher saw him after the murder several times.
Yeah, and not only, even if it did make sense, you're right. And that's why I think you could get away with anything then, because the antics of the family at the trial, and everybody was so horrified by what was going on, nobody was looking at this critically and questioning stuff. Because every day, Manson and the girls were getting thrown out of the courtroom for screaming, for singing, for dancing, for mocking the proceedings. So all this stayed under the radar. But once I could prove that Melcher lied, and then 2 or 3 more, then I knew that I had to question the entire narrative. So Bugliosi started monitoring my interviewing. This is all laid out in the beginning of the book. So by the fall of the first year of 99, I got a call from one of my sources, Rudy Altobelli, who was another important witness. He was the man who owned the house where the murders happened. He was traveling. He was traveling actually in Europe with Sharon, who had come back Sharon taped about 3 weeks before to have her baby. And Rudy had told me from the very beginning, he was very close to Terry, Dennis Wilson, and the third guy, Greg Jacobson. Greg Jacobson was another important witness who lied throughout all of his testimony in the trial to fit a narrative that Vince needed. Rudy had told me that Vince called him, Terry called him and said, what are you telling this O'Neill? No one was supposed to know about that. Vince promised me it would never come out. So at that point, I knew that I was onto something even bigger. And then I got a call from Vince, and he left a message on my machine saying he wanted to talk to me. It was important. So I called him back, and he said, I'm hearing, I can't remember who told me, and that was another little game of his. He would never be, it's like Trump saying, this guy said to me, or one of my friends, or they say, Vince said, someone told me, I heard that you're questioning my tactics and my choices at the trial. Is that true? Tom, what's going on here? I go, well, I'm looking at stuff, Vince, and you knew where this was going. I mean, I know we haven't talked, at that point we hadn't talked for about 6 weeks, I think. He goes, well, I want you to assure me that I'll be given the opportunity to answer any of these questions. He goes, because what might appear irregular to you as a layperson can be easily explained by me. And I said, well, of course, Vince, I'll definitely swing back around to you before. He goes, and I thought this was going to be out in August, and we were in like October, I think. I go, yeah, I got an extension. He goes, well, they're also saying it's a book and that you lied, that it's not a magazine star. I go, oh, no, I'm still getting paid by Premiere, because I was at that point. And I had no idea it was going to be a book because we were still in the first 6-7 months. So at that point, we stopped talking, Vince and I, and it wasn't until 2005 when I got my book deal that I went back to him with these questions. And I hoped naively that I would get him to break down and say, yes, this was all a CIA operation. I was operating.
Oh, God.
But no, that was stupid of me. But, I thought, what else can he say when I put all this in front of him? But, as...
He must have been really freaked out by how deep you got into this.
Yeah. Well, again, you've read the prologue to the book where we open in that scene in his kitchen where he's screaming and cursing at me and saying he's going to hurt me like I've never been hurt before, and he's going to sue me for hundreds of millions of dollars. It's crazy. Well, when you get to the end of the book, you'll see the outcome of that day and what happened when he's begging me. He's saying he'll give me a quote on the cover of my book if I don't publish this stuff. And then when I wouldn't agree to anything, then the lawsuit threats started happening. So I naively, I didn't think he was going to break down and say I was working for someone else. I had no choice.
Right.
But instead, he was evasive, threatening, screaming, denying. He had 2 recorders. I had 2 recorders. He went off the record every 2 minutes. So we'd have to turn off all the recorders, and Vince was not turning his. I'm like, Vince, you didn't turn yours back. Oh, no, you didn't turn it off. Wait, and no, that's my record. No, this is yours. So 1 minute he's screaming and cursing at me going, do you have any idea how I will fuck you if you fucking put this in your book? And then the recorders go back on, but sometimes they were already on because we couldn't keep up with all the off the records.
Jesus.
Then when I got home that night, So I walk out of the house, 6 hours, exactly almost 6 hours, just like the first time, 6 years earlier. He's grabbing me by the arm. He goes, this isn't quid pro quo. This isn't quid pro quo. But if you don't put this ridiculous nonsense in, he goes, a blurb from Vince Bugliosi. He always referred to himself in the third person. A blurb from Vince Bugliosi on the cover of this book. You have no idea what that does. And I rarely do it. I'm very selective. I get asked 10, 20 times a day. I mean, the man's ego is, you'll see that in the book. Then I get home that night, there's messages, call me. And he called me, I think it's a week and a half, almost every day. The next morning, a few days later, he would bully me, and then he'd say, no, look at what this is going to do to my family, my kids, and all that. Went on and on and on.
But you had to be very excited by that, knowing that, like, this is...
Oh, yeah.
There's no reason for that guy to react like that unless you had him.
I know. And then...
He knew.
Yeah. So a year later, not a year later, he said, when we finally, he goes, at the very last phone call, which was a week and a half later, he goes, so you're really going to go ahead and do with this? Go ahead with this. I go, Vince, I'm going to report what I have. I go, if you want. At this point, I had lost, the magazine deal had ended. I had sold the book. So he knew I had a publisher. I told him who it was. And he asked for my editor's name there. He said, because I will be sending them a letter. He goes, I will work on this letter for hours. It's going to be a complete rebuttal of everything you argued, all of your arguments, all of your points. It's going to ruin you. They're going to cancel your deal because they're not stupid. So he wrote the letter. They got it in, I think it was June or July, after February of that year, 2005. And I got a call from my editor. He said, you got to talk to our attorneys. He goes, we have a letter from Vince. I go, well, I told you it was coming. He goes, it's insane. It's 34 pages, single space with 50 pages of attachments. And he goes, I've never seen anything like this. So he said, talk to the attorney. So they sent me over to the attorney. And he said, my first question, I'd never met the guy before. He goes, my first question for you, O'Neill, is he suffering from dementia? He goes, I was a law student during the trial. And he goes, I follow that trial every day in the paper. I've read Helter Skelter. He was brilliant. He goes, I can't believe the person that wrote this letter wrote that book. So maybe you were dealing with somebody who was impaired. I said, he's mentally ill. And I have a lot of proof of that in the book. It's not dementia. I go, he's finishing his magnum opus, a 20-year effort to write a book rebutting the critics of the Warren Commission about the Kennedy assassination. I go, he's got a book coming out, a tour, and sure enough, he wrote, I think, 2 or 3 more books after that. I go, I caught him. He goes, all of his arguments don't make sense. He's contradicting himself. The letter goes off in directions that it sounds like it's written by a madman. And I go, is it going to inhibit us? He goes, oh no, we're opening the champagne here. He wouldn't write a letter like this unless you got him.
Yeah. Well, that's what makes sense. 50 pages of attachments?
That was the first letter. Then about 6 months later, another letter. I think there were 4 total. I quote some of them in the book. It was nuts. And unfortunately, he passed away in 2015 or 16. And I get a lot of criticism you get it from all.
How old was he when he died?
I think 74 or 5. It was cancer. I knew he was sick off and on for a couple of years. But I've been accused by my critics of not publishing the book until he died because of these threats of law. No, I wanted him to be alive. I wanted him to be accountable and have to answer to all this. The reason I didn't publish it when I was going to publish it was Penguin, my publisher, canceled my deal in 2011.
So the motive, though, to get back to the
motive, yeah. So the official motive was double. Bugliosi said in his closing arguments that the main motive was to ignite Helter Skelter, race war. The sub-motive was to instill fear in Terry Melcher because he had rejected Manson.
Right.
So you're saying, well, then if it wasn't those, then what was it?
Right.
All right. If you look at the COINTELPRO objectives, which was to diminish to neutralize the left-wing movement, to make them look horrible, evil, bad, and this is what drugs are going to do to your kids. The kind of outcome that these murders had was to make the hippies the boogeyman. I mean, the biggest boogeyman in United States history, I don't know forever, but at least until the 70s, became Charlie Manson. And when Manson and his family were identified as suspects the first week of December '69, I mean, it was like earth-shaking, because all of a sudden nobody knew who had committed the murders, that the case was open from August till 1st of December. You have photos on the front page of every paper in the world of these hippie women, nursing children, living communally, who were accused of these horrible, brutal slayings. And the argument was, and what the reporters were reporting was, they had gone crazy on LSD and free love and the hippie ethic. And that was the same thing Chaos and COINTELPRO were trying to do. They were trying to damage the youth revolution, the youth movement.
Why do you think they targeted that house, though?
So J. Edgar Hoover, when he had the COINTELPRO operation, he wrote an LA agent wrote a memo to Hoover saying what we have to do. This is when they were mostly battling the Panther, trying to neutralize the Panthers in LA, was go after the whites, the elite whites, the Hollywood whites who were supporting the Panthers. There was something called the White Panther Party that began in LA, '67 or '68. Jane Fonda, Warren Beatty, Cass Elliot. Those three were actually under surveillance by the FBI. They were part of this group, Donald Sutherland, and they were basically Leonard Bernstein. They supported the Panthers. They raised money. So in this one memo, which I think it was the winter of '68, I got the date in the book, said that what we have to make the whites think is that when the revolution finally happens, when the blacks rise up, they'll be lined up with everybody else and slaughtered. So if you look at that memo, that was part of their operation, which was they did it by sending letters, making, the whites scared. So that, I hate to speculate, but I think people will draw that conclusion if you read the book, that this could have been a Chaos or COINTELPRO operation to turn, the world, the nation, the culture against hippies, the left wing, the Black Panthers.
And they picked that house because it was high profile, because Sharon Tate was in it?
It actually, not because Sharon Tate was there. Well, her and Polanski, and that's one thing that Tarantino, I don't think he showed the parties at the house. They were like the social center of Hollywood. It wasn't just the movie people, it was the music people. And Terry Melcher and Candy Bergen lived there for 2 years before. That was a party house. Everybody went in and out of there. It kind of represented the elite of movies, music, Hollywood, white people. So that would have been a very high profile
place to hit.
Target, yeah.
Because all the people in that community, in the Hollywood community, would then also be aware that that was a spot that they had been to.
Yeah.
All these high profile people had been there.
Yeah. It's like Joan Didion wrote in her book, The White Album, that the morning she learned about the murders, and she knew most of the victims, she goes, I knew that the 60s had ended, they were over. There was also Altamont and, not a whole lot else, but that was like a cultural watershed moment.
Episode number 1726 with Chuck Palahniuk. He shares the strange story of his father's murder.
But has there been anything in your life that was so horrific that they couldn't imagine telling you?
Except for my father's murder, not really.
Maybe that was it?
Maybe that was it, but boy, that doesn't seem like it's big enough. I don't know.
How was your father murdered?
Dad was murdered in May of 1999. He had answered a personals ad for a woman who was looking for a boyfriend. And the ad was headlined Kismet. I believe that's the Arab word for fate. And Dad met with her. Her name was Rita. She was a lawyer. She had worked in the prison system in the Midwest. And Dad was really, really taken with her. She was really bright and really smart. And she had an ex-husband who had sexually abused her daughter from a different marriage. And they were pressing charges against his ex-husband, and he was going to go to prison, and she had met him while he was in prison, and she was doing legal work, and she had helped him get out of prison. So she helped him get out of prison. She'd married him. He had abused her daughter. She divorced him. She was prosecuting him to send him back to prison. Then she met my father. And this ex-husband had said that if he ever caught her with another man, he would kill them both. So my father was going to pick her up, and she was going to stay at his house in the mountains until the time of the trial. And as he was going to pick her up, he was going down this mountain road on his property, and a giant boulder broke free, and it rolled down the hillside, and it blocked the road. He couldn't get out. So he spent the day with this a lever, forcing this boulder off the road. And then he took a couple extra hours, and he made a sign that said Kismet Rock, so that he could label this boulder as a kind of landmark for when he brought her back to sequester her. And he'd cleaned the house incredibly. The house was just neat as a pin and stocked with all this food. And, you know, he really planned to have this fantastically sort of idyllic time sequestered with his new girlfriend. And he labeled the rock to surprise her. And then he went to pick her up. And when he went to pick her up, the ex-husband showed up. And he shot my father. And my father and the woman took refuge in her house. And the man set fire to the house. And the house eventually collapsed. And the coroner says that they were both dead before the fire got to them. And the coroner says that because of the angle of the shot, my father probably took about 20 minutes to die because the bullet ruptured his diaphragm. So with every breath, he would have been accumulating air between the lung and the diaphragm. And so every breath would have been more and more shallow because his lungs would have been more and more constricted by this air above the diaphragm. But that eventually he'd suffocated. And all of this sounds horrible and tragic, but it forms this fantastic pattern in my father's life because my father, when he was very small, he lived in northern Idaho with this enormous Ukrainian family. And his father went kind of crazy one day. This is all public record. I've talked about this a lot. But his father took a rifle and walked around the house and tried to kill him, my father, and ultimately killed killed his wife, my father's mother, and then killed himself. But my father's earliest memories are of hiding underneath a bed as his father walked around the house in logging boots with a rifle, calling his name, trying to get him to come out so that he could be killed.
Jesus Christ.
And so my father spent his entire life sort of looking for his mother because as his father was trying to kill him, he was trying to find his mother, who at that point had been killed. And so my father really had this kind of serial pattern with women. He was always looking, in a way, for the woman. And ultimately, he was shot by the man with a gun in the way that he would have been shot when he was 4 years old. And one of the uncanny things is that their bodies were only preserved because a bed on the second floor of this structure, as it was burning, the bed fell over their bodies and insulated their bodies. And my father had escaped his father by hiding underneath a bed when he was a small child. And the fact that the Lonely Hearts ad was headlined Kismet, and the fact that this boulder rolled down in front of my father's car just as he was leaving,
that prevented him from getting there in time, where he probably would have been able to escape before the ex-boyfriend arrived.
Or I don't know, there's so many odd, bizarre coincidences and synchronicities. You know, you would have to really dismiss a lot of things in order to make this not something significant.
Not fate, or not some reoccurring theme woven into time.
And in a way that, understanding all these different aspects of it, it provides a comfort that it doesn't seem like this random thing. It seems like something that some aspect of my father's life that was coming full circle and was finally being completed. And maybe I am clutching at straws and I'm just a kind of person looking for significance, which is what we all are. But I'll take comfort where I can find it.
Episode number 1851 with Chris Williamson explores why psychopaths exist and their societal role.
I learned about the adaptive reason for psychopaths being in society. So you'd think like it's about 1%, 0.1% to 1% of people are psychopathic, right? And then you can filter that down to the ones that have got sufficient motivation to actually go and do something that's a bit wild. But I was asking this guy, the researcher, and I was saying, look, what is it? How do psychopaths even exist? Like, why do they exist? I can't understand why they're adaptive. I know that you can be effective over short periods as a psychopath, but over long periods of time, it doesn't end up being very good for society. And I thought it would have been bred out. He said, yeah, you're right, except for the fact that over the entire size of a population, a few psychopaths actually make sense. If you're a raiding party, a Viking raiding party that needs to go over and fuck everybody up in Lindisfarne, which is near to where I lived in the UK, you want some psychopaths. You don't want them to come back with PTSD. You want them to go over there, burn everything down, rape the women, pillage, come back with gold and supplies and grain and whatever else they take, and not care about it. You actually, on an individual level, psychopathy might not be fantastic for the people around them, but in a tribe, it's actually quite adaptive and quite useful. It's like a weapon, like a very specific sort of weapon that you can use.
Yeah, break glass in case of war.
Yes, yes, in case of raiding party.
It makes sense that it would be sort of a legacy thing that exists in the human population, that we've had it because it was very beneficial thousands of years ago.
But the difference is now that you're not going to get pulled up as much for being a psychopath because you can move from town to town. If it was a Dunbar number of 100 or 150 or something in your tribe previously, what are you going to do? Go to the next tribe? Maybe that would have happened. I don't know. Perhaps you could move from one tribe to another tribe. It seems pretty unlikely. You'd probably just get killed. But if you fuck over people one too many times, this is the reason that socially we're so careful of status. It's one of the reasons why we are concerned about public speaking, because one of the few times you would have done that is when your status would have been in high focus, and people might have said, if this goes badly, they're going to drop down, or maybe you were defending yourself against the tribe of some kind.
Right.
If you're not able to move on, that would make psychopathy more difficult to manage and more likely to be punished, I think. But now you can just go from town to town to town within a city. You can go from suburb to suburb, change your name, not use your social media profile anymore. I think that psychopathy, people that are actively being psychopaths, are significantly easier now to hide in amongst society.
That makes sense. It also makes sense that psychopathy would have been more common because it would have been more useful when you're constantly in tribal war.
Correct.
Yeah.
But it depends on how you deploy it. So it's interesting. Psychopathy, to be a clinically diagnosed psychopath, you actually have to have committed criminal acts. So you can't be, because of the way that the current psychopathic checklist is called, I think you have to be 28 out of 40 in the UK or 30 out of 40 in the US. The US has got a higher threshold for psychopaths, which is kind of funny. And there was this guy, this researcher, who was researching psychopaths, and what you see is a particular area of the brain is downregulated, right? So you don't see as much activity when you see stuff like death or images that would cause you to have empathy. So he decides that he's going to study a bunch of psychopaths, many of whom I think are actually in prison, because you have to have committed a criminal act, and then he needs a control group. So the control group is going to be, you're a professor, you've got students, use the students. And he was running out of people to put in the control group. I mean, he even used himself as one of the people. So anyways, running through this control group and having a look at all of the people that are in it. And he notices this person's got no activation when they're going through. And he goes, holy shit, this is the brain of a psychopath in the control group. I found a psychopath in here. I need to go and contact him. It turned out to be him.
Oh.
Turned out to be the professor himself. He discovered that he was a psychopath whilst doing a study on psychopaths. And then he said, actually, you know what? It all makes sense now. Because when people come round to my house and they're eating my food, I think, who the fuck are all of these people in my house eating my food? Why are they here? And they interviewed his kids. They asked his kids. And they said, what is it like? You know, is there anything unique about Dad? And he said, well, yeah, Dad, he doesn't smile that much around us, and he's not very warm, and he's not very loving, and blah, blah, blah. But the point being that you can have the biological determinants of being a psychopath and it not manifest. This is a fully functioning guy, wife, kids, career, didn't smile much, wasn't happy when people ate his food, but like broadly fine. But he had essentially the same raw materials as the person that was murder in jail.
So what's the determination? What are they looking for when they find out that he's a
whole big long checklist. It might even be available online, I'm not sure, but big long checklist of things that you need to go through, a bunch of questions that you answer, and they go through this diagnosis. But in order to breach the threshold of clinically being diagnosed as a psychopath, you have to have used it to commit crimes. So this meant that although this particular professor had all of the raw ingredients and it looked like he was psychopathic, by the DNS? What's that thing? The Diagnostic Statistical Manual, DSM. The DSM wouldn't have categorized him as a psychopath. Very interesting.
That is very interesting. So this guy, did they contact his spouse?
Well, I think it was him doing the study, right? So I guess he contacted his spouse.
Did he ask his spouse, like, what's wrong with me?
Well, fuck knows. But
why do you like me?
Perhaps. But then you also have to think the fact that psychopaths tend to be pretty effective in the world, right? So someone that has very outgoing traits, they're super self-assured, you have a narcissism as well, as long as it's not vulnerable narcissism. There's two types, grandiose narcissism and vulnerable narcissism.
What's the difference?
So grandiose narcissists are the ones who genuinely believe that they are better than everybody else. They are constantly proving this to everyone. Vulnerable narcissists manifest their narcissism in a similar way, but it's to try and hide the fact that deep down they don't believe that they're anything. So both types of narcissism will manifest in a similar sort of way. Both of them will be out there, but one person is desperately seeking approval and needs people to tell them that they've done well, and the other one doesn't. They're just going to continue believing no matter what reality brings to them. Now, the vulnerable narcissists are actually really dangerous, and the reason for that is that if the world doesn't give to them that which they think, they're going to get very, very angry and aggressive, because that taps into something that maybe they're fearful about that's deep down.
That makes sense. That makes sense where a lot of people who have a distorted perception of where they should be in the world are angry at others who are doing well.
Mm-hmm. And if someone takes them down, if somebody was to take the piss out of them, the grandiose narcissist, it would just be water off a duck's back. I don't care.
Trump.
Yep. Yeah, definitely grandiose narcissist, right? He's not got vulnerable narcissism in him. Right. Someone that's a vulnerable narcissist, everybody knows that friend that just can't not bring up the most recent brilliant thing they've done, but they know that if they poke them a little bit too hard, that it would really, really hurt. That's the vulnerable narcissist.
Yeah.
In MMA show number 166, Joe Rogan and Ilya Tapuria examined the Cain Velasquez case, questioning justice after his reaction to his